How many of you know what this is? Of course, it's a toilet paper roll. And how many of you have ever done the following? Close one eye and look through the toilet paper roll like this. What do you see? In fact, what don't you see? What you don't see is everything that you would see with both your eyes working. Even if you cover one eye, what happens? You see much less. Your field of vision is smaller. In fact, I can only see to about there. If I open both my eyes, I can see all the way to this way and that way. So when I raise a toilet paper roll in front of my eyes, I've narrowed my field of vision to only what I can see through this hole. My name is Stephen Dobus and I'm a Silva Method instructor. I'm here to answer one of the questions that I get often when someone calls and inquiring about the program. What is the Silva Method and how does it work? With this example, I'd like to share something. How many of you have ever seen a person wear a cast on their heads like this? What happens? What's it for? Something had happened to their head and they need to repair it. Sometimes it's easy to compare the Silva method to a cast on our head. The Silva method is a method for us to be able to access the ability of our full brain potential. Today, many of us are walking around with a cast on our heads because our brain potential that we have, we're not using fully. Let me illustrate. Our brain is actually two separate hemispheres. Two separate hemispheres are connected by something called the corpus callosum. Let me show you a pair of balloons. I have a left hemisphere, which here is reflected by the red balloon, and I have a right brain hemisphere, which is here reflected by the yellow balloon. The two brain hemispheres are connected by something we call the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is basically a data cable networking our two hemispheres in order to achieve the maximum potential. Now, what happens when part of my brain isn't working properly? Well, as we've probably heard, and although science is still not fully certain, we're learning more and more about the brain every day. But for illustrative purposes, let's simplify things. The left side of our brain, or the red balloon, is used for more rational thinking. The rational thinking that typically we learn at school, the rational thinking, math, about numbers, about going through a list of tasks to do. The right side of our brain, or the yellow balloon, is what we call, or we can refer to as the creative brain. The creative brain is the one that is creative in terms of art, in terms of good ideas. It's also the brain that thinks outside the box that we've heard so often. The right brain is also the one that becomes more activated when we meditate and when our bodies, our minds are in a calmer, more relaxed state. So these two parts of the brain, when they're working together fully, that's when we can maximize the results. That's when we can achieve the best. For instance, when you're writing a test and you're all stressed and you're trying to think through all the answers, what happens? Well, sometimes you answer questions incorrectly, although you may know all the information. But sometimes you also have that hunch, that feeling, which, if you would act on it, then you probably have the right answer, and you'll be able to complete the test with more accuracy and more detail. So let me illustrate some in another way for you. So the two sides of our brain are like having a gentleman, an English gentleman with a top hat. An English gentleman we can consider very stereotypical. The left side of our brain, he's very straightforward, very rational. In fact, I would even say that an English gentleman that we see on the TV can be actually cold. Keep calm and carry on. Very black and white, straightforward. The right side of our brain, on the other hand, is more like a playful child. It's more like Silly Billy, who runs around and rolls around on the floor, plays Napoleon. He can build a house out of a wooden crate or carton box, and he just has fun. When you need to solve an important math problem or a problem at work, maybe the left side of your brain is appropriate. Maybe you're going to be more of a rational thinker. Maybe you're going to be able to calculate, make all the calculations on the Excel sheet, or prepare the document that you need to in order to present properly. But sometimes, when the situation calls for something outside the box, then you're going to have to choose something else. When you're playing with your children, for instance, rational thinking and this is what you should do is not always what's going to work. So the right side of the brain needs to be activated in order to awaken that creativity in children. Many of us today are basically walking around like this. We have a brain, but our head, like it's half used. The Silva method is an excellent technique which was developed more than 50 years ago in order to help your brain, both hemispheres of your brain, work together. Because the more you use all of your body, the better the results will be. Just imagine a ballet dancer who's dancing with one leg. What's the result of her dancing? It's actually pretty bad. But when she uses both her legs, then she can twirl and she can sing and she can dance all around. And the quality of work that she can do is stupendous. It's not once or twice better. It's 50 or 100 times better than dancing on one leg. So in order for us to be able to use both sides of our brain ideally, have our left side of our brain, our right side of our brain hemispheres working together, we have to train both. Our education system, especially in the Western Hemisphere and North America, has been very much focused on the left side of our brain, and we've been developing the rational thinking side. However, in many other cultures, in Asia, in South America, the right side of our brain, the right side of the brain was much more involved, much more developed. In fact, if we look at Michelangelo or Einstein, they were both using both sides of their brain to the maximum potential in order to accomplish all the tasks and problems that they had to. In fact, geniuses typically are able to use both sides of the brain equally. But how do we do that? And what does the Silva method teach us in order to accomplish this? Well, the Silva method is a scientific technique which is developed by Jose Silva over in the 1950s using techniques and insights that he created through practice and experimentation. And all of the insights that Jose Silva developed are still standing ground today when our brains are being more and more understood. Science is still far from understanding what our brains can do, but we're learning more and more every day. Over 6 million graduates around the world have used the Silva method to improve everything in their lives, from solving simple problems, improving their memory, increasing their overall health, improving their creativity, becoming more relaxed, manifesting their dreams, earning more money, engaging better with their children, and so on and so on and so on. So the Silva method is really a whole mind development program. It really helps you to create that synchronicity, that communication between both hemispheres of the brain, and in the end, to really develop your intuition. Your intuition, which rises based on your internal messaging, based on what's happening inside. But in order for that to happen, you must be able to use both sides of your brain just as well. So today, to avoid being like this, it's absolutely essential for us to develop our brains in a scientific way, that will help us to accomplish our maximum potential.